its history, the game of college basketball has given rise to some of the most inspiring leaders in sports. Men who have stepped into the spotlight time and again, taking charge when the game is on the line and directing their teams to victory. These leaders make bold moves under pressure, execute with extraordinary skill, and set incredible records. As time goes on, they separate themselves from their peers, becoming more than just athletic stars. They become legends. Tonight, the Nabc Foundation and Nike are proud to present the 2017 induction class of the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, a celebration of icons who have secured their places in college basketball history. And now, please welcome the host for tonight's show from Fox Sports, Doug Gottlieb, and from ESPN, Fran Fraschilla.
How cool is this, Doug? Is this
great.
unbelievable?
Basketball heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great place to be. Kansas City, Missouri, 40 miles down the road. Dr. James Naismith, the man that invented the game in the first inaugural class, 2006.
And of course, for those of you who were with us in 2006, John Wooden was inducted into the first class here, as well as Dean Smith, Oscar Robertson, Bill Russell, and of course, Dr. James R. Naismith. So every year you have special players, special stories, and this year is no different.
Absolutely. The class of 17 is amazing. Tonight we honor a lineup of great players and a great college basketball coach who electrified the state of Wisconsin. And the thing that's interesting about this class is think about where they're from. They're not just from, New Jersey. They're from Spokane, Washington. They're from the U.S. Virgin Islands, Sandusky, Ohio. It's pretty cool.
Not only has a wide spectrum in terms of where they're from, but think of the positions they play. Arguably the greatest point guard in the history of the game of basketball. Arguably the greatest power forward or center, whatever position that he played in the history of basketball. You name the position, we have it represented here tonight, as well as you pointed out, different regions of the country and even regions outside the contiguous 48.
Yeah, it's really cool. And these are truly the greatest of the greatest. And class of 17 is absolutely no exception. Now, you ended up as the 7th all-time leader in career assists in the NCAAs. And you played on great Oklahoma State teams. You know the point guard position well.
If you don't have a point guard, you don't really have a chance because they have to defend the ball, they have to run your offense, they have to get the ball where it needs to go at the time in which it needs to go there. And so with John Stockton, look, I had a poster of him on my wall. If you want to be a point guard, you play like John Stockton. And then during my era, Jay Williams was the best player in college basketball, and he happened to be the point guard for Duke, which, oh yeah, by the way, every kid in America wanted to be the point guard at Duke. So you have two iconic players at an iconic position, and it's a position that you can't just judge based upon statistics, on wins and losses, and they both won a ton, and they're two of the best ever, if not the best ever to do it.
Well, let's take a look at the two outstanding point guards that are going to be honored tonight.
The position of point guard is one that demands mastery of the game. And if you're skilled at it, you can become legendary. Before becoming one of the NBA's 50 greatest players in history, John Stockton starred on the court for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Electing to stay in his hometown of Spokane, Washington, Stockton helped elevate the Zags to national prominence during his sensational 4-year college career. As a senior in 1984, he earned WCAC Player of the Year honors, averaging more than 20 points and 7 assists while shooting a stunning 57% from the field. Stockton finished his career with 1,340 points and broke school records in both assists and steals. He then became the first player in Gonzaga history to be selected in the first round of the NBA draft.
I know that I worked hard and enjoyed the work. I know that I've always liked my teammates and my coaches. There's never been conflict in those areas. We lived for each other, and nobody had illusions of playing in the NBA, so there were no ulterior motives. We were all just in it together to try to win games. We were usually the underdog, and we kind of liked that.
Expect the unexpected when previewing NBA drafts with the Utah Jazz. Having supplied the media with a list of 13 possible first-round selections, the Jazz conveniently left off one important name. The first inkling that a smokescreen might be set up came last night during our live shot from the Jazz offices.
We may have a surprise for you.
The Utah Jazz select
John Stockton of Gonzaga University.
I think that we spend a lot of time and we do a very good job at scouting. Why should we share that with anybody?
I don't know why I got a shot back then. You know, you can talk about divine intervention and what your role is in your life and why me.
He's a dangerous scorer and he's an exciting passer. I think he'll do some exciting things in our fast break. We feel good about him. I mean, you know, that he can come and make our team.
Yeah, I was very surprised. The rumors, of course, were flying. Very few of them said Utah, but my dad called it. He said Utah's going to pick you. And I said, sounds good to me, and they did.
Certainly I've been blessed by this game. I've been given opportunities that I couldn't have even dreamed of as a young man.
I'm very thankful to everybody here at Gonzaga, some players back there, the coaches, the staff.
It helped keep me grounded. You play in the NBA, it's a different lifestyle without question. Every year I'd go back for the summer, every year I'd go back until training camp and work out with the Gonzaga guys and be home. So I never really have left that college environment in all my years.
A two-time consensus first-team All-American at Duke, point guard Jason Williams is revered among the top players ever at the tradition-rich school. During his illustrious three-year career, he led the Blue Devils to a pair of Sweet 16 appearances and the 2001 National Championship. As a junior, Williams broke Duke's single-season scoring record by averaging more than 21 points per game and swept the National Player of the Year awards. His brilliant collegiate career earned him the second overall selection in the 2002 NBA draft by the Chicago Bulls, and his jersey was retired by Duke just 1 year later.
Between my freshman and my sophomore year, I had a life-changing decision that I had to make. And I don't know if kids look at it like this anymore in today's game. You can leave and go home and spend your summer with your family and your friends and do the same thing you've been doing for the past 17 years of your life that you do in the off season, or you can stay here, take summer classes, and keep your ass in the gym and make a mandatory 1,000 shots a day. And I chose the latter. If you're coming here to be what we thought you could be, why else would you be anywhere else?
He's a very special basketball player. Actually, we got on him for passing the ball. I think he's so unselfish that he's trying to get everyone involved, and that's why he's a star player.
Coach K is a mastermind at psychology. Some of the things he's able to do to get you outside of yourself are absolutely brilliant.
You see the great defense here. There's a hand on the ball, constant activity by Williams, tough shot, the wherewithal to stay behind the three-point line and make it.
Dedication and commitment. It was the first time I heard about these words before, okay? Every single year, our expectation is to win a championship.
Jason, three-pointer. Got it. Hasn't had it all night, but when they had to, he nails it.
Those moments spent trying to work your ass off to attain this goal set a foundation for who I am in my life.
Jason, after he made a bad play, comes and hits the three. We just did tough things, and I think we're deserving of this.
I still have a home in Durham to this day. When my accident happened, when my mother got her kidney transplant, there was no other place in the world that I would have thought about going. Our home is right next door to her doctor. My family is not okay. I am not okay as a human being if I don't have that man and that university in my life. There are no words that I can say that can pay the amount of respect that I have for everything they represent. No words.
Two college basketball legends, John Stockton and Jay Williams.
Congrats, John.
Jay, I actually want to start with you. I do and I don't. You've received just about every honor you can achieve in high school and in college, and you've won a national championship, and you have your number retired, and you're a graduate of Duke. But it's one thing to be honored in the Hall of Fame. It's another thing to be up here with who I think most of us consider the greatest point guard in the history of the game. What does that alone mean to you?
Like, I used to study film of him and Karl Malone. His ability cerebrally to see the court and to make plays happen And sometimes I wonder, what the hell am I doing up here with John Stockton? It's just, it's incredible to be in his presence, but I'm gonna throw his basketball game out the window. I respect the person that John Stockton is, and I think that speaks waves about who he is as a person.
John, when you played at Gonzaga, it's not the Gonzaga of the 21st century, with all the Final Fours and NCAA appearances. You guys were a little Catholic school, Jesuit, I think, up in Spokane, and not a lot of people knew about you. There had to be a point in time during your career at Gonzaga that you said to yourself, I think I can play with just about anybody. Did you have that kind of moment?
Well, I don't know if I did, actually. I remember when Dan Fitzgerald recruited me to go to Gonzaga, he said, hey, we all know you're not going to play in the NBA. I mean, that's how he recruited me. And I went there. So, some of the fellows are here tonight. We weren't there with that notion. We went there to find a great team atmosphere and learn how to try to eke out victories when we might be overmatched every single night. So it was a lot of fun growing up and as a player in that environment, and I wouldn't trade it for anything at Gonzaga.
How'd you do it? What is the secret sauce to what's made you such an iconic figure in the game?
Well, I don't think I knew any better. As I mentioned, when I went to Gonzaga, I had no expectations. I just went to play ball, and I learned from big guys. I learned from little guys, seniors on up as I grew up that ladder. And then I had people take a chance on me. That really doesn't happen very often anymore. And Frank Layden took a remarkable chance on drafting me with the Utah Jazz, and you really have to get that opportunity. And then after that, it was again I was oblivious to the fact that probably most people thought I couldn't play. And so I just went out there. I felt I could compete against guys even if I wasn't as good as them, and it worked out.
And Jay, you're a little different because you were highly recruited. What kind of pressure was that going to play for an iconic coach in an iconic program and knowing that the ball was going to be in your hands?
It was arduous, especially for somebody that never really played the point guard spot. I was a small forward, power forward in high school, so that was a challenge. But I think the main reason why I went to school at Duke is because at that time when I was being recruited by a lot of different people, everybody talked to me about ball, and I loved playing basketball. But I rarely got spoken to about what kind of man somebody was trying to groom me into. And Coach K specifically focused on that aspect of life. And, you get a chance to play for a Hall of Famer and his attention to detail in the game, and that's why I wanted to be a part of something so great.
All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Only you,
Doug.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes. Like, look.
I feel like we're back at ESPN.
Close
I know,
your
right?
eyes.
This is
Close your eyes.
days, by the way.
You wrote about me in your book. Now you're going to do me a favor, okay? Close your eyes. I want you to tell me what you remember about the national championship.
The best part about the championship was that, 5 months prior, we were all in a room, and Coach K specifically asked all of us to tell each other about what our dreams were, because in that moment he got us to buy into each other. He wanted us to invest into each other emotionally. And everybody told their dream, and my dream was, as time dwindled off the clock, I wanted to take the ball and I wanted to throw the ball up into the air. And everybody, kind of was like, all right, cool, Jay, here's your dream, sit down. And I find myself in the championship game 5.5 months later, and Chris Duhon is dribbling the ball at the top of the key. And we're about to beat Arizona, and I am running around not knowing who the hell to hug. And Chris Duhon pulls me over, yells at me to come over, and I come over to him, and he hands me the basketball. And I hold the ball thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? And he takes his thumb and he goes. And in that moment, I was blown away because my teammate, my best friend, out of all the chaos that was happening, took time to remember my dream. That's a bond on the collegiate level that is beyond great. I've never felt that before again in my life. That's college.
Well, two absolute icons, two absolute legendary players, both at the point guard position, a position of leadership, and a position that changes the culture of both of the places you played. Men, congratulations on the honor, and thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Okay, John.
I think coming from a small town in Ohio and coming to Bloomington, which was a small town also, it was perfect for me. And when I chose Indiana, I knew it was going to be disciplined and hard under Bob Knight. That's kind of what I wanted. When I came there, I was looking for system where I could be a part of a great team, and I found it there. And then once we got going, the sky was kind of the limit. We just kept, winning. The team just kept getting better. The IU basketball situation was a perfect team for me.
Indiana plays a half-court offense, and they play it tight. They don't spread out much. They want to get their big men inside. There's Scott May up to go. He's got the...
I think that when you're number one team, for an example, and you go on the road to different cities to play, and if that team beats you, you've made their year. And I'd have to say that is probably more motivation for me than anything else.
There's something about an unbeaten champion in any sport. And it's been a thrill to watch Bobby Knight's team this year.
People only have maybe one view of Bob Knight, which is the fiery, angry coach. But if you get to know the guy, he's a pretty good guy. Loyal to his players. He's a good friend. I try to see him once or twice a year. He's really helped me a lot in my personal life and things like that. A great coach, great teacher. I'm just grateful that he picked me to go to school at Indiana.
The state of Indiana has produced some of the greatest basketball legends of all time. As a dominant scorer for Bob Knight in the 1970s, Scott May led the Hoosiers to unparalleled success, including one of the most improbable of all feats, an undefeated 32-0 season in 1975-76. A two-time consensus first-team All-American, May averaged 23.5 points per game as a senior to earn National Player of the Year honors and finished with a 3-year record of 86-4.
Scott May winding up the greatest career in the history of an Indiana basketball player.
Please help us welcome Scott May.
Still moving without the ball.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Scott, we saw you jumping into the arms of one of your teammates. Describe your emotions at the end of that Michigan game in 1976 and what was going through your mind.
I think the emotions were kind of up and down. We were down at half.
And Michigan, the underdog, is 6 points ahead of Indiana, which has won 31 games in a row this year.
And I remember, Coach coming in the locker room and telling us, hey, guys, if you want to be one of the greatest teams of all time, you want to make history, you got 20 minutes to prove it.
They came through with a tremendous second half and defeat Michigan.
We win the game, and after the game, it was like mission accomplished.
They thought it'd be a very tough game, but Indiana, maybe at the end of the year, was even better than they were during the entire season.
We've had this record for 40 years, and I'm sure I speak for all my teammates.
41 years, by the way.
41 years, okay. So it maybe someday it'll happen where somebody will put a good team together, and they'll come through and they'll win 38 games and win the national championship. So I'd be proud of it, be happy for them. I'd watch it, but we've had it long enough.
What's it mean to be a Hall of Famer?
Man, it's really special. I'm really grateful. My family and friends are here with me tonight, so I get to enjoy it with them. Great moment. I'm happy that I got invited, and I've had a great night.
Deservedly so. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a Hall of Fame send-off to the great Scott May.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
At a young age, I learned the legacy of my father. I didn't really like my name of Cleo, but as I learned more about his career, I began to like the name, and it gave me more confidence as a basketball player and as a coach. There have been a lot of comparisons across between Kyrie Irving and Dwayne Wade, which I think is very special. In terms of Kyrie Irving, how he's able to score on a different array of shots. And I think with Dwayne Wade, it was the athleticism, the shot blocking for a guard and playing above the rim. So that's kind of my breakdown, talking to different people, but the stories are endless. Someone that went to college with him said he wore a silk cape around campus that said Mr. Basketball. I think his biggest legacy was what he was able to do for Winston-Salem as a university and Division II as a whole level, and historically black colleges on a whole. He put them on the map so to speak, when college basketball was at its infant stages. For the NCAA and the Hall of Fame and their committee to recognize him at what I call such a high level, my family and I are deeply grateful for that, deeply grateful. And I think he would have been too.
At this time, we want to pay tribute to a special member of the class of 2017, the late Cleo Hill, who passed away in 2015. And Doug, I have a passion for the players in our great game, college basketball, that didn't get the opportunity to, play on ESPN, play in a power conference, play where you got a lot of exposure. The players in the historically black colleges were often neglected by the national media.
There's a part of basketball which I wildly underreported, a class of basketball player that has not gotten its due, and credit to the College Basketball Hall of Fame Selection Committee for recognizing men like Cleo Hill, who was a Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving type.
Maybe David Thompson, Michael Jordan type to some.
Right, like a shot-blocking point guard, the type of athlete who can dominate a game with the basketball, without the basketball, but that type of spectacular athlete that for so long was not granted the opportunity that young men are granted today.
We know now, if we talk to some of our peers and some of our coaching peers, that these were great players who played in the shadows of the national media. So at this time, let's take a look at this brilliant career of the late Cleo Hill.
Hall of Fame broadcaster Billy Packer refers to the late Winston-Salem State phenom Cleo Hill as one of the best players he's ever seen. In his 4-year career for the Rams, Hill averaged 25.4 points per game for Coach Clarence Big House Gaines, leading WSSU to back-to-back CIAA titles as a junior and senior. By the time he graduated, he had earned 2 All-CIAA honors and been named an NAIA First-Team All-American. With a career total of 2,488 points, he departed as the second leading scorer in school history behind fellow Hall of Famer Earl the Pearl Monroe. In 1961, he became just the 5th HBCU athlete to be selected in the first round of the NBA draft. Cleo Hill, a true pioneer and now a member of the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored tonight to present Cleo Hill's Hall of Fame medal to his son Cleo Hill Jr., who made the trip to receive the honor on his late father's behalf.
Congratulations. Cleo, those of us in the New York, New Jersey area know about your dad and know not only was he a great player, but he was a great coach as well before he passed. And I want to know, if he were here tonight, what would this award mean to him?
Well, I think he would be just like our family is, extremely proud and very humbled by the honor. I think that would be the attitude he would have.
But humbled didn't necessarily associate at times with your father. Not that he wasn't humble, but he knew he was a great player. He knew he was a great showman for the sport. He knew he was a great coach. That was part of, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that was part of his persona, right? Is that he had panache with how he did everything within the game of basketball.
Right. I think he was not lacking confidence by any stretch of the imagination. I think he would have been similar to the guards of today, the scoring point guards. And I think the NCAA and the Hall of Fame committee recognizing him, it says a lot about them as an organization.
One thing, or maybe more than one thing, got you through that funeral. What was it?
Well, I think he coached college basketball for about 24 years, Essex County College in New Jersey. To coach that long, you're going to have a lot of players that you coach. But I really think it was all of them. It had to be over 100 players. And to see each one of them come in and pay their respects, it got me through the whole day.
Congratulations to you and the Hill family, Cleo.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Fred. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bo, the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame. Bo Ryan, Hall of Famer. What's that mean to you?
Fran, would you pinch me? Go ahead and pinch me. Come on. Okay.
You go in with a great class, You're a basketball lifer. You've watched all these guys play. I'm going to mention a guy and just tell me what you think, because they're forever going to be cemented with you in the class of 2017. John Stockton, Gonzaga University.
John Stockton. I was a point guard fan in high school and college, and that is the position where the coach lets you kind of run the team on the floor. He's the guy that took the game to a whole nother level when it came to sharing the basketball, his peripheral vision, his feel for the game, his use of ball screens. And you know, he must have been a pretty good leader too. So John Stockton, to me, is one of the greatest players that'll ever put a uniform on.
You and I have been a part of college basketball for a long time, and Mike Krzyzewski set the standard. Jay Williams, goes in as a classmate of yours as the National Player of the Year, a national champion, and one of the great players in the history of Duke University. Describe Jay Williams and his game.
But the fact that he ran the show for the Duke program under, you know, a great coach, a great leader like Mike, I have so much respect for Jay. There's a lot of pressure on him. And then, you know, you got the Duke uniform on at that time. That was quite the responsibility. Who handled it better than him under those kind of circumstances, and to be able to produce? And he produced. I have a lot of respect for Jay Williams, believe me.
You're a Big Ten guy through and through. You and I remember...
Big Five growing up. Right.
Yes, Big Five first, and then Big Ten. And you know a lot about the history of Big Ten basketball, being a part of it at Wisconsin. Scott May played for the Hall of Fame coach and Bob Knight, the last undefeated team in the history of college basketball, 1976. Give me your recollections of Scott May.
I was just getting into coaching and college coaching in 1976. And I can remember being in Philadelphia and watching the semis and then the finals. Scott May is one of those guys that just soaked up everything that Coach Knight gave him. And to be able to go undefeated in a basketball season is not easy. And Scott May was really the trigger when he was healthy in '76 that made all the difference in the world.
Your reputation has been as a stickler for the fundamentals and team play. And to me, there's no better team stat from an individual standpoint than a guy that grabs rebounds. Paul Silas, one of your classmates in the class of 2017, averaged a 20-20 for his whole career. Describe his impact on the game of college basketball.
Well, he put a body on a guy every time a shot was taken. And everybody I've ever talked to that played against him, whether it was in college or in the pros, they always felt it the next day having played against Paul Silas. But his impact is this. Who was more solid and more consistent when it came to having a nose for the ball than Paul Silas? His numbers speak for themselves.
Cleo Hill Sr., Orange, New Jersey, Winston-Salem State University, the old CIAA. This is a guy that was legendary on the East Coast. And he was from a historically black college, which, as you know better than anybody, at that time didn't get the exposure that the guys who played at the big schools did.
I had heard of Cleo Hill, not because he's from Dionne Warwick's hometown, but he was definitely a guy that made a statement for all those people who really never had a chance to play under the big lights, but made the most of the situation and had a positive effect on a lot of other players.
You're going into this Hall of Fame with one of the greatest, if not the greatest power forward in the history of basketball. You're actually one of those guys that knew Tim Duncan before Tim Duncan became Tim Duncan. Tim, in a sense, was a pioneer because he was good enough in the 90s as players started to leave college early to do exactly the same thing. And he stayed 4 years to play for Dave Odom at Wake Forest. What do you think that says about him?
For him to stay was the best thing possible for not only himself, but for college basketball, because he set a great example. I'm gonna finish my degree. I came to college to do this, so I'm gonna accomplish that and still go out and win those championships. And that's a great role model. It really is.
What are you going to remember most about the class of 2017, this weekend, being here in Kansas City at the Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame?
I thought I was going in as a player. Then I realized I was going in as a coach. But, Fran, to be around these guys and to get into these conversations and just to listen to them, to see their families, to know what kind of people they are, just really reinforces everything I thought about these guys as individuals and now as a group. It has been a blast. I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of fun, and I got some autographs.
Everyone knows you come from the Virgin Islands. Coming from your background, show up in Winston-Salem, what do you remember about that experience?
I think it was cold.
Paul, you had 38 rebounds in engagement. Do you remember that game?
I don't. That was 50-some years ago.
You're supposed to lie and tell a fish story. I remember every single one of these rebounds.
We're delving into an area that neither one of us has much familiarity with. That's playing power forward.
Well, every guard wants to be a power forward, right? And every power forward, we were told, wants to be a guard except for these two, because they did all the little things that guards are incapable of doing.
You know, we've got two guys that span an era of about 40 years, but they kind of, to your point, they were similar.
Well, let's take a look at two of college basketball's most dominant power forwards ever.
Before leading their NBA teams to multiple championships, two legendary forwards honed their skills on the college hardwood, setting remarkable records and posting jaw-dropping numbers. From 1994 to 1997, Tim Duncan made NCAA history with Wake Forest, becoming the first player to reach 1,500 points, 1,000 rebounds, 400 blocked shots, and 200 assists. The winningest player in school history, Duncan's smooth post moves and skill on the boards helped him earn a lengthy list of honors, including 2 consensus first-team All-America nods and the 1997 National Player of the Year Award.
It means a tremendous amount. I think it means more now because 19 years in professional basketball, to be able to go back and really think about my years in college, my teammates, what I accomplished there, is really a great time to kind of look back and appreciate the start of this whole journey for me. Wake Forest was the perfect place for me. Size-wise, the people, the experience, the level of competition, and just a great class and a great coach to play for.
And Timmy Duncan's going to say so long to the fans here at Winston-Salem. And they're on their feet at Lawrence Joel.
I wasn't ready at 2 years. I don't think I was ready at 3 years. Maturity, physically, I think the 4 years were meant for me to be there. I was able to grow. I was able to develop not only my skills, but just as a person. So I needed those years to become the player I was. I don't think I would have been that unless I was able to stay that long.
The numbers for Timmy Duncan staggering today. He hit 12 of 16, 21 rebounds, 27 points, and he played all 40 minutes in the championship.
I don't think I really regret anything. I think everything just happens for a reason. To think about the College Basketball Hall of Fame at that point was nowhere close to in my head. I was blessed to have won a couple AC championships. Would I have taken an NCAA championship? Absolutely. I don't know if I would trade anything for it, though.
The name Paul Silas is synonymous with rebounds. In just 3 seasons, Silas grabbed enough boards to rank 7th all-time in NCAA history and first among 3-year players. A star in nearly every game he played at Creighton, Silas is just one of 7 players to average over 20 points and 20 rebounds during his collegiate career, and his 21.6 rebounds per game ranks 3rd on the all-time list. Following his senior season, Silas earned All-America honors from the AP, NABC, and UPI. Tim Duncan and Paul Silas, 2 dominant forwards, 2 college basketball greats.
Bill Russell had played in the high school that I had played in, and he was the one that talked to me about going to Creighton. And I just said, you know, if that's what you think I should do, that's what I'm going to do. Red McManus, who was the coach there, he was so excited that I had come because in high school I had won 68 games in 3 years and never lost any games. So he was happy with that, and he thought that the team would be a lot better, which it was. I started scoring and that kind of thing, and you know, I would really knock some players around and that kind of thing also. So I wanted players to understand that I was the toughest guy that they ever had seen. I used my body to do whatever I wanted to do. To rebound, I would put my body on guys and that kind of thing, and they wouldn't hold me back, you know. And then when I was on defense, I would put my body on them, you know, and they wouldn't try to get around me and that kind of thing. So it was just really difficult to most players, but it was good for me. You know, I just said everything is going to work out, and it did.
Gentlemen, please welcome college basketball icons, Tim Duncan and Paul Silas. Congratulations. Well, men, there's just so many places we could go. Tim, let me start with you. Obviously, everyone knows you come from the Virgin Islands, and we've seen your passion for helping the Virgin Islands after the devastating hurricane recently. Coming from your background, you show up in Winston-Salem, tiny campus, small school. What do you remember about that experience?
I remember it was cold. More than anything. I'm coming from the islands for 17 years, and I show up there, and it's like 60 degrees or something like that. And I remember it's cold. I don't have a jacket. I don't have anything show up on campus that way. But I found where they played pickup basketball, and that was one of the first things I kind of went and did and started playing a little bit just to get used to and acclimated to what the campus was.
Paul, you had 38 rebounds in a game, which is an amazing accomplishment. Do you remember that game?
I don't. That was 50-some years ago.
You're supposed to lie and tell a fish story. I remember every single one of these rebounds.
And he did have 33 against...
Someone just told me that I got that many, and but I don't remember that.
You know, if you play with Doug McDermott, you would not have had 20 rebounds a game.
Right, exactly.
Because he wouldn't have missed that many times.
Tim, one of the things that strikes all of us, because you were a superstar in college and you've been a superstar in the pros, an NBA champion so many times over, that you're not just humble, you're coachable. Where does that come from, your coachability?
Listen, I walked into college expecting to be redshirted, and I knew I had a lot to learn at that point. I knew I was kind of a throw-in at the end of our recruiting class. So I was just there to soak up whatever I could, play as much as I could, find a way to be effective, and that paid dividends for me.
Paul, you won 3 NBA championships, and you were the ultimate team role player, but your college statistics put you ahead of, in terms of rebounding, people like Bill Russell, same high school, I think,
yes.
McClymonds High School,
yes.
Will Chamberlain, and Kareem. I know it's a dumb question because you're a humble man, but how does that make you feel?
My rebounding was good because that's how I had to play basketball. I wasn't going to play in the games if I didn't rebound well.
Tim, I mentioned your 3 kids are here, and people have called you the greatest power forward ever. They've called you Mr. Fundamental, and they've talked about the NBA championships, and now you're being recognized as a college basketball Hall of Famer. That's all us talking. You've never been somebody who's super loquacious, but how do you want to be remembered as a player?
Just as someone who was a team player, someone who made their team better, someone who worked hard. They've had an opportunity to obviously see me play a little bit in the NBA, and it's just a great opportunity for them to see what I did way before them, and how I kind of worked my way up to be a top player in the NBA, where I started from.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for 2 of the great rebounders, 2 of the great power forwards, 2 of the great men in college basketball history, Tim Duncan, Paul Silas.
Badger Nation, are you ready?
You know, it's amazing. Yeah. My dad was actually the head coach at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee from 75 to 81. And then it went Division III. And the man who brought it back was Bo Ryan. That was when I first learned the name Bo Ryan. But what Bo Ryan did and his staff did at Wisconsin and Platteville and UW-Milwaukee, the stuff of absolute Hall of Fame legend.
What I respect most about Bo Ryan, Doug, is that he was self-made. He went out to Wisconsin in 1976 as an assistant. And then he took a Division III job at Wisconsin Platteville, which he turned into really the UCLA or Duke of Division III before he got his shot at D1. Bo took that job and turned it into really, which is now one of the consistent powerhouses in college basketball. Truly one of the all-time greats. Let's take a look at the video.
In the state of Wisconsin, Coach Bo Ryan is an icon. In 14 seasons as the head coach at the University of Wisconsin, Coach Ryan never missed an NCAA tournament, winning 4 Big Ten regular season titles and 3 conference tournaments. Ryan took the Badgers to the Final Four in both his final 2 years. His success resulted in a number of coaching awards, including 4 Big Ten Coach of the Year honors. Prior to his success at Wisconsin, Ryan took the University of Wisconsin-Platteville to unprecedented heights, leading them to 4 NCAA Division III titles and a 90.8 winning percentage during the 1990s. In total, Ryan earned 737 career wins, landing him among the elite top 50 winningest coaches of all time. Bo Ryan, a brilliant coach, a dynamic leader.
I think what happens is that the bond develops between players, coaches, fans, because we're all cheering together for an outcome. But the outcome isn't anywhere near as important as all the relationships and the journey that you're on. So, you know, in the scheme of things, this is a team sport. This is a bunch of guys getting together in t-shirt and shorts with a pair of sneakers and experiencing life through a game. That's what we do as coaches. We're teaching life through a game. And I've used the quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson many times, is that our chief want in life is to find somebody who can get us to do what we can. And I figured that was our job as coaches. You know, it's a passion for the game, trying to give back, trying to nurture young people, trying to be a mentor. It just was such a thrill for 40-some years to be able to say that I was a teacher and a coach. But the ride was great, and there's memories that we'll never forget.
Bo Ryan. I think everybody obviously remembers the Final Fours and the consistency of winning at Wisconsin. You come from Chester, PA, you go to Wisconsin, then you go to Platteville, then you go to UWM, then you go to UW-Madison, but the consistency of success, 14 years, 14 NCAA tournaments. What does that come from? How can you consistently win at a place like Wisconsin in a league like the Big Ten?
Well, one thing that I always did was every assistant coach that I hired was a teacher. People that know the game, can instruct the game, can disseminate information to the players. But that's absolutely, positively the reason that we were steady, successful, and we were who we were, and we did a lot of nice things, we feel, with the guys who wanted to get better and wanted to learn.
What did coaching at Platteville do for you as a basketball coach? Was it a laboratory?
Well, absolutely. It taught me some things that I know I should never do again, which I think everybody will admit to when they've journeyed through the coaching ranks. But I truly felt that in Division III, that if you could win any type of championship or win consistently, you can coach anywhere.
Bo Ryan, a guy who won 4 Division III titles, winning his coach ever in Division III history, won 82% of his games. Nobody ever won 4.
Working with those guys that didn't have scholarships, cutting your teeth as a head coach, they established a record which you were talking about the undefeated season of Indiana. Platteville's got 2 undefeated seasons. I don't know if you knew that.
No, we did. We were going to ask you, but you beat us to it.
I beat you to the question.
I was going to ask you, though, about you had built a powerhouse. You could have said this is as good as it gets, and I'll win national championships, and I'll set every possible record Division III. You chose not to do so. What was that like?
In 1999, we won the national championship in double overtime. They were catching up to us. It was time to go. So when the AD and the chancellor from UWM approached me, somebody believed in what we could do. It never happens without somebody believing.
Doug mentioned Chester, PA. Chester is just on the outskirts of Philly. I think it could be best described as hard scrabble, tough people. How did your environment growing up in Chester mold you as the person and coach you became?
Chester will challenge anybody. Without a doubt, be able to handle yourself and know where to pick your fights, where you need to stand up, where you need to make sure that you don't back down. So I really owe a lot to Chester for teaching a lot of things, especially along those lines, to be a tough competitor and don't back down.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Wisconsin legend, Hall of Famer, Coach Bo Ryan.
Thanks, Doug.
Wow. What a night, Doug. You know, for two junkies like us, two guys that live, eat, and breathe college basketball, I couldn't think of a better place I'd want to be.
Not just that, but I think that we've all gotten a chance to see that they're not just Hall of Famers as players with their accomplishments, but as men, husbands, fathers, guardians of the game. The Nabc talks about being guardians of the game, and they're all players and people that represent the game of basketball the way in which you as a coach, me as a former player and the son of a coach, would want the game to be represented.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, great players, great people, and it's an honor for us to be in their presence for a few hours. It's really, it's memorable.
And if you haven't been to Kansas City to experience the CBE, it's just a great place if you love ball. Boys, girls, big and tall, even big kids like me can go and shoot the basketball at different heights and experience different parts of what makes the game so special. Right now, we'll conclude tonight's ceremony with the official induction and presentation of the Hall of Fame medals.
Ladies and gentlemen, the class of 2017.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. Good night.